If you've ever found yourself trying to figure out how to create content that connects and come up with an efficient marketing strategy, today you are in for a special treat. Welcome to the Prime People Podcast. I'm your host, Justin Conoco. I own a real estate brokerage and a production company, but more than that, I'm connected with some of the best and brightest people on the planet. And this is the show where I bring them on and we dig into how they got to where they got to, what they're seeing as trends today, and they give you practical and tactical things that you can take into your business and unlock that limitless livelihood that you're looking to create. Today's guest is a brand strategist for none other than Ryan Serhant, Candice Morales. I've spent literally probably hundreds of hours with her at this point on different apps like Clubhouse and in different social circles. And it's been amazing to watch her grow. More importantly than that, she's an actual practitioner. So she has done the actual thing. There's a lot of fake life coaches out there that are trying to give you advice that they've heard on YouTube, and it's just not really connecting because they're not actually practitioners. So I put her in the same category as somebody like a Gary Vee, who isn't afraid to get her hands dirty and then tell you how you can do the exact same thing. And that's one of my favorite things about this show. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscription button. Make sure you drop your name in the comments, who you are, where you're from, so I can connect you with Candice. I see Megan Luker is actually here. We all know Megan very, very well. Go check out her YouTube channel. It looks like she just dropped a short, which is a trend on YouTube that maybe we'll ask Candice about. But I'm going to bring my guest on right now, not delay any longer. Candice, how are you doing today?
Hello, I am doing well. Thank you so much for having me on today.
Yeah, I appreciate you making the time. So give people a little bit of your background. How'd you end up working for Serhant, and What are your thoughts when it comes to content creation and digital strategy?
Yeah, so I'm Candice Morales. I'm a brand strategist, and I specialize in helping real estate agents show up and show off in the online space. I know that makes people feel uncomfortable showing up and showing off, both of those things, which is why I love to say it. And I have the pleasure of working with pro members in the Salt Lake Serhant program to help them build their personal brands and figure out, kind of navigate the online space, how to use it to your favor, how to not be afraid of all of the tools that we have at our disposal and actually maximize our impact and our influence using those tools.
It's funny you say that, right? Being afraid of the tools, because I'll start with TikTok. Like, TikTok is unbelievable as a platform. I didn't really know what to make of it, and I'll use myself as a case study, right? Like, I make content on other platforms at scale, and I knew TikTok was incredible from an organic perspective, but I kind of wasn't consistent, and I was trying to find my place. I did the Glenda Baker style reels, where Glenda's a really good friend of mine, and I told her, I'm like, you're my inspiration for this, I think in the first videos, but her version wasn't really my version. I've noticed over the last little bit, and I did a video yesterday where I actually stitched another TikTok, and I got like 5 or 6 times the amount of views that I normally do. So, take somebody that was maybe in my shoes previously, explain to them why it's important to learn how to use a platform like TikTok.
Yep. I love that you brought up Glenda. I'm actually having dinner with her tonight. So Glenda has her own style. If you follow Glenda Baker on TikTok, she has her own style. She is a storyteller. She has an accent that totally works for her. She's unapologetic about her story. She's going to tell you, she's going to make everything a story, and you're going to learn a lesson in the end. And that is her personal brand. And so you trying to emulate something like Glenda isn't going to work for you because you're a different human being. And that's what's really, really important. So many real estate agents are trying to copy other agents, and what they don't know is that the other agents aren't doing it well. So if you are going to, take inspiration from someone else, you have to always remember that first and foremost, your superpower, the thing that makes you different, the thing that makes people know, like, and trust you is who you are. And that's going to be unique to everyone. So the first step that people often miss out on when they are thinking about creating content is sitting down and really asking themselves these 3 questions that are really important. And if you're listening right now, like I ask you to like write these down and answer these questions. They are: who are you at your core? Who are you? Who do you serve? And be unapologetic about who you serve. Don't worry about leaving people out. Who are you best equipped to serve well? Who is that group of people? And lastly, how do you serve them? What is uniquely different about you that you bring to the table? So when I think about myself and who am I, I'm an educator turned entrepreneur. And my background as a middle school teacher, I think, definitely comes through in the way that I approach my work, right? My background in
Mhm.
education, my background in being able to break things down in bite-sized chunks and check in with people and kind of be a motivator and a cheerleader, but also not afraid to call you on your shit. I'm not sorry. I don't know if I'm supposed to cuss on here.
You're fine.
But all of those things, I think, make me who I am and position me differently than someone who doesn't have my background. And so I think I use those things to show up online and in the online space, and I do it unapologetically. And that didn't come naturally to me at first. My first few years of being a content creator, I had a coach who was just like, Candice, you think this is hard? You think it's hard to click go live because you're being someone that you're actually not. And that's why every day you're struggling to click go live, because you're trying to be this maybe more polished version of yourself, and that's just not who you are. So she's like, if you decide and you give yourself permission to be yourself, it's going to be so much easier. And it was just a light bulb moment for me, and it changed the game. I decided I was going to just really double down on who I was, even if that's a little rough around the edges. And I'm going to give myself that permission. And then showing up was really easy. I think that if you don't know who you are, or you're trying to be someone you're not, trying to be Glenda Baker, that's really freaking hard because you're not. And although we can absolutely learn things from her content, we have to still do them in our own ways.
I think that's a super important lesson too. And I was using Glenda Baker kind of as a case study because, talking through how she went through this concept with her in Denver, and she's been very open and shared kind of that journey with her. She was talking about, say, this one, for example, where she's staring right at the camera versus these off-camera conversations. It took her actually doing the thing to realize that she's much more comfortable storytelling and feeling like she's talking to somebody versus staring right at you with this one. And it's interesting because you can see just based on the actual views when it feels like Glenda and when it feels like it's maybe not that truest version of yourself too. And I think it's okay to be inspired by other people. Super interesting. Like I was doing 1 minute long videos from 2013 till about now, right? And I was doing them on Instagram on a platform that didn't really value short form content at all, but it was converting conversations. And when I did those, I knew when I was in the streets and people were calling me and saying, I watch all of your videos, my head, I was like, well, why don't you like or comment on them? But hey, it's generating business. I don't really care. It was the journey that kind of got me here. And it's the same thing with Glenda. It's literally, she said, I think the one thing that most people miss is she said, when I started making a commitment that I was going to post every day at 7 a.m., that's when everything changed. Content aside, like that's when everything changed. And I found that, and I'll stick on TikTok for a minute because it's important, that like I'm going live on TikTok, I'm stitching, I'm posting stuff, I'm doing all kinds of different things, and I'm tasting the platform. And I'm noticing the platform starting to engage with me in a way that it never really did before. And I don't really care about the views. It's more the consistency that I'm trying to build. So can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, I love that idea. And I think that a lot of people who are new creators are like, where are the likes? No one's liking my stuff? Where are the views? How do I get more views? And the real question you should be asking yourself is, how do I get more consistent? So just like Glenda said, how do I show up for my audience? And you going live on TikTok is giving you an opportunity to create community. You're so great at that. It comes through in everything you do on Clubhouse. Creating community is one of your strengths, but now on TikTok, you're also allowing that to happen by going live. And so if you are in this space right now where you're struggling to show up, or you're worried because no one is engaging with you, flip that and say, how can I engage with people? Because then they will reciprocate, right? And that's really important. I love that you're going live. That's really how I got to start seeing my TikTok followers as my friends, as my colleagues, and really start doing more business on TikTok was right after I went live, right after I got that first 1,000 followers. I really started getting consistent clients on TikTok, since I started in January.
Or was it going live that created those relationships?
I think so, because going live, people had already had a library of my content. They probably got to deep dive in it. But when they actually got to have conversations or ask me about my TikToks, or, hey, you said this in one of them, what did you mean? Tell me more about that. Or this is my story. This is what's going on in my life right now. How would you apply this? And getting that real life in real time feedback, I think, was the thing that allowed them to decide that, okay, like she's legit, you know, okay, I want to work with her. If this is what I get for free on a live, what happens when I actually work with her? And I think that going live gives people that opportunity.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I'm going to dive deeper in this topic because I think this is such a practical application for everybody. Grab your pens, take some notes, follow Candice, give her some love for this. So explain to me how that works. So when you're going live on an app like TikTok, I have an issue where I'm just trying to fill the white space because I do a live podcast. I never want there to be dead air. Yet I'm watching other people's lives, and even on my own, I notice that like it's okay to just like have it playing live while I'm just sitting there doing random nothingness. And as the conversations start happening, that's like, how is it different from
Yeah.
doing a typical live?
Yeah, I know I had the same struggle, and I think I'm still trying to get over it because TikTok is different in that manner. I go live on Instagram all the time, and I do fill all the space.
Yeah.
And on TikTok, you know, I could just be making a sandwich waiting for the next person to pop in their question. And that's totally fine and acceptable. What I think we're really talking about is the culture of different apps. Every app has its own culture. And
Sure.
that's really important for creators to understand, because so many people are like, can I just put everything I make on Instagram on TikTok? And the answer is really not exactly,
Yeah.
because not everything works in the same way because it's a different culture. On Instagram, you'll find that the videos are much more polished, and on TikTok, they're much more raw. And people
Well, like,
don't
so I'm going
like
to
it.
pause there
They're
because
overly polished.
I'm so sorry to cut you off, but what I wanted to say was I was on your show last week and it was like being on a TV show versus TikTok, which is completely different, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it is very different. And I think that that's why you also need to engage on apps. So if you just, you know, hire a social media manager and they're the ones that are putting up your TikToks and they're putting up your Instagrams, but you're not actually going on there watching people's stories, you're not going live, you're not engaging in other people's lives, you're never going to really have that full impact that you can have, because you're not building the relationships, because you're not there in real time. And so even though it's nice that you have that presence, what you really likely want is community. And you're not going to get it if you're never spending time in that space.
It's so true. And when I made the reference to Gary Vee, it's because it was fresh in my mind. I actually have gotten off his content for quite some time, just with all the different ecosystems I'm in, right? I'm obviously with the Sirhan crew. I do some stuff with Tom Ferry. I'm involved with Think Media. And I'm like, there's only so many hours in the day. But I know he's been harping on Facebook groups and how that's the next big thing. And we're going to touch on that in a minute. But he actually said something on the 4Ds this morning where he was consulting with somebody and he was walking through his journey. He's like, I remember when I was doing Wine Library TV, there was a gap in between him actually doing Wine Library TV, building the brand, building the social, and then him building VaynerMedia. And then when he was consulting with clients and he was discussing it with his internal team, he wasn't in it anymore. And he's like, I felt like very vulnerable that I couldn't have a knowledgeable conversation because I wasn't doing the thing. And that's where I highlighted at the beginning, like, you're an actual practitioner, as do I take a lot of pride in myself trying to be, is I understand the thing versus you're just hiring a 6-figure digital agency to show you a good KPI that means absolutely nothing. So let's save some people millions of dollars. Let's educate them on the state of the digital consulting landscape and what they should be looking out for.
I want to be clear that I want you to get help. Help is important. It'll make you go further faster.
Yep.
But no one can be you ultimately. No one can build relationships with people in the way that you can. And so even if you're getting support on social media, which I think is obviously great since I provide support on social media, I still want people to understand that it doesn't replace you showing up. So Gary, I was actually at the Forward event a couple of weeks ago. Gary spoke about how, he still answers some of his DMs and his comments. Like, that's him. And that he takes pride in, because he wants you to hear from Gary, right? Because that is the thing that keeps you coming back. And yeah.
Elon Musk on Twitter, like, pretty sure Elon's a pretty busy guy and he still finds time to be himself, right?
Absolutely. And that is so key. So if you're just starting out and you're hiring someone to take care of your social media, just know that it doesn't mean that you don't have to be present. It actually means that you should have more time to be present with your people.
Yeah. And I think it's a difference of, is it an overall branding strategy? And like, you may be at a point where you have enough money where you can do that to a certain position, right? The
Right.
digital billboard is the equivalent of saying, hey, I have Prime as a brand. I need large distribution of our current inventory. Highlight this, 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 and this. That's something I can actually automate because I'd compare it to certain, like the actual company brand versus Ryan. And I'm like, where should you be deploying your energy? When Ryan posts that he's going to Greece and the reels he posts, it feels like you're hanging out with them, which is what the end game is.
That's
right?
by design, right? It's by design that you feel like you're hanging out with him. Why? Because he is now a trusted friend, because you get to be part of his life. You see him and his daughter, you see them on vacation. He takes you through the airport with them, right?
The Hamptons. I feel like I was there with everybody.
You feel like you're at the Hamptons. Exactly. And that is by design. Those feelings are because he's thoughtful about the content. Him and his team are thoughtful about the content that he's putting out there, right? And if you are giving people the opportunity to be part of your life by showing your life on social media, and not just, I know, I couldn't go through this podcast without saying just listed, just sold, under contract, right? Yeah. If you can actually show who you are as a human being and make connections, then you will always have business.
I mean, just listed, just sold, you're just another realtor. Like, I hate to say it that way, but what separates you from everybody else? And I think, let's talk strategy. Let's give some people some advice. When Ryan's sitting in the back room and he's mapping out that strategy, I have an idea of what the chaos and the circus looks like in my brain. How do you take somebody and give them that path forward of creating a strategy? Like, where do they even start?
I think the simple thing is you put content creation in your calendar just like you would any other meeting, and you show up for yourself just like you would show up for a client, which I see a lot of times. People put a meeting with themselves on the calendar, right? Hey, I'm supposed to make content at this time, but I have to go. This thing came up and there's a showing, or there's this or there's that. And really what you need to be saying is, yeah, I could do that, but at 12 or 1 or whenever your content block isn't. But don't let people hijack your time, because ultimately what you're doing is continuously putting yourself on a hamster wheel when you do that, because you're never going to get to a place where you prioritize content, which means you're always going to be struggling for the next sale. And when you prioritize content, I can guarantee you in 3 to 6 months, if you're serious about content creation, all of my clients who have done this, who've posted at least 5 times a week with good quality content, not stock images, not just listed, not just sold, like really good quality content, 5 times a week for 3 to 6 months, they get their first sale.
Wow.
Or listing.
Or somebody calling them and actually converting.
Yes. And after that, it snowballs if you're consistent. So I think the first thing is sit down with a calendar, block out time for content creation, commit to a certain cadence. Say, I'm going to, post 5 times a week. Commit to Instagram stories. People undervalue Instagram stories a lot. There's so many conversations that happen in your Instagram stories. And I know one of the reasons you're skipping out on stories is because not so many people watch your stories. Yeah. But if you're consistent, that number grows and the conversations are more intimate in your stories. And people feel like they have insider information into your life. So it's easy for them to ask you a quick question, even if it feels like it has nothing to do with real estate. I'll give you a quick example that I've been sharing that people have been enjoying. I got an air fryer.
Oh, the air fryers. We can do a whole podcast on air fryers.
Right?
If you want.
So I got an air fryer. I opened up the box and it said Friday. It happened to be Friday. I was like, oh, this is a cool Instagram story. I was like, hey, Friday, I got my air fryer today. Drop any recipes that I might need for my air fryer. So, whatever, 15 people, I don't know, dropped recipes telling me, oh, try fried pickles, try this, try that. So one of the girls, I was like, oh, that sounds good. Yep, definitely going to try it. And she's like, oh, and by the way, we started a conversation about an air fryer. But just a couple seconds later, she says, oh, and by the way, and then she was my client.
Yeah.
Just like that, because I gave her an opportunity to talk to me, and it wasn't a threatening opportunity. Like, there was no skin in the game, right? I wasn't like, do you want to work with me? Set up a consultation. And I do that sometimes, but not all the time. And it was just, remember that she's been wanting to talk to me. So let's do this. And I think that people undervalue those tiny things that just give people the chance to feel like you're their friend. But so Instagram stories, for sure, take advantage of those. Today will do wonders, and start conversations there. I think those are like the first key parts. Commit to time in your calendar, commit to a cadence.
Oh no, I lost my internet connection.
Right back.
I'm it's coming back now. I can hear you. Can you
Okay.
hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, I'm not sure if I'm
Okay.
still moving or not, but there was an
You're good.
internet glitch. That's great advice. I
You're
think
moving.
building in the consistency, right? And it took me a very long time to build up that cadence from a standpoint of understanding like what my vision of my brand would be. And I hate that word because I was always, pushing against it, saying, well, I just want to be me. I don't want to be a brand. But I started realizing that instead of being a fire hose of content, I had to be focused. But stories was like the training room where you can go off brand and find that clarity, right? I'm going to share my screen one more time. Actually, I pulled up my IG actually as you were talking because it tracks to an exact piece of content I created. So here I'm resharing a listing that we popped up. And the next thing that I'm sharing is beautiful classic cars. And it's interesting. So my in-laws are in the business of classic cars. And, I always post those from once in a while. Those get an insane amount of DMs. Like I post a photo of that and I get a ton of DMs from people because they love that stuff. And then I come back and I'm like, okay, but I want people to know I'm actively in production. So I do stuff like this where I'm going live in front of properties that I'm at because I also know my competition. One of the biggest things that they try and do is say, well, look, he's doing podcasts and he's doing this and look at how busy he is. He's not actually selling houses. So I use the content creation application to control my own narrative. But, I do go off brand in the right places. I'm not posting classic cars on my main feed. Can you explain the dichotomy between, say, main feed and stories so people can understand where they can be themselves and where it needs to be a little bit more polished?
Yeah. So if we're talking about Instagram specifically, I think that, if you're out to dinner and you want to take a picture of your plate of spaghetti, that's cool, but we don't need it in your feed, right? Your feed should be kind of evergreen, and that plate of spaghetti is not doing anything for you next week. So put that in your Instagram story. If it's something that is just like an in the moment shot, then it's like it likely belongs in your story.
Yep. I'm back.
I think it's me.
No, I don't think it's you. We have a big storm here right now, but this is what happens.
Mm.
This is doing content live, and it is what it is. So I appreciate it.
And yeah, no one cares, right? They're still here.
Well, I don't
Um,
know. YouTube trolls can be pretty ruthless. I've dealt with some our channel grew, and oh my goodness, it is something.
but I think that your feed should represent who you are and the story that you're trying to tell, who you can help,
Yeah.
and in the most evergreen kind of way possible. And then in your stories, in the moment stuff is great. And if you want to try new things out, like I actually am going to try something new out coming up in the next couple of weeks here on my feed. So it's okay to experiment with stuff, but it's about consistency, right? And getting that feedback and being okay with it.
So I'll break down a bit of my content calendar and strategy. If you want to share yours, by all means. I want to give people some insight into what it looks like from an overarching perspective. I really try and do one large hero video a year, one on Justin, one on Prime, something I can put on my website. You land on, and you're like, oh, look at all the things that he's doing. On the real estate side, it's real estate focused. We sell residential commercial investments across Southwestern Ontario. So I show all that in that video. And then I'll take that piece of content and create like little pieces of content from it, maybe 12. So I have a piece of content every month. My personal brand, I educate real estate agents, entrepreneurs on marketing, branding, and sales, right? Productivity, that's kind of my thing. So my personal brand is heavily geared around that. And then what I do is every month, I'll typically do one full down batch shoot. So I'll sit down for a couple hours, rip off 30 short form content reels, do a lifestyle shoot. So bring in like 3 or 4 different shirts, ties, all that stuff, and just get a whole batch of content. And that usually gets me through for a quarter. I do my Prime People podcast every Thursday. I do a real estate mastermind once a month. I could go on and on. That's kind of the structure that I've built over time, maybe overwhelming to some people. Where can they start? Like building out their own content calendar so that they can get to that point.
Yeah, I would start with creating 3 content buckets or content pillars, sometimes people call them. And for real estate agents, it's pretty simple. It's like real estate. So you decide what kind of real estate content you want to create. That's maybe educational, answering FAQs. It could be home tours, anything related to real estate. It could be even you, if you lead trainings about real estate to other agents, all of that can be showcased in that real estate bucket.
When you come up with a bucket, are you thinking about the person that you're talking to in terms of
Yeah,
like the content to
always.
create? Okay, interesting.
Yep. So if this is if it's a real estate agent, I would say real estate is just automatically one of them. And then we would hone in on what their flavor of real estate is, right? For you, maybe you're talking to more agents than you would be buyers and sellers. I don't know, but we would figure that out together. And then the next part is like your life. So that means if you're on vacation, it's okay to be on vacation. We could still want to see pictures of Ryan without his shirt in Greece, right? Like that's still on his feed. Okay. So we want to see that because we feel like we know him a little bit more intimately because we're there with him. And then, so your friends and family, that's your second bucket. And then your third bucket, this really depends on your personal brand. Maybe it's fashion, maybe it's food, maybe it's fitness, anything that you're into that is part of your life that you love to share. Maybe it's personal development and you share motivational stuff and you read these books and you have value to add outside of real estate so that when people are not in the market to buy or sell real estate, they still have a reason to follow you. So I would say break down your buckets, decide, hey, I'm going to always post about these three things, but just mix it up in the way that I post about them. And then the other thing that I like to do that I don't really see any other coaches share is like, I like my clients to like pick a quirk, something that is uniquely them. Like I always say like true crime is my self-care. And it's like just like a little thing that I say, but people always send me the newest true crime podcasts.
That's
I'm
amazing.
like, oh my gosh, Candice, have you seen this came out? Like you should watch this. Oh, yeah. Friday night, you're going to be on the couch with this. And people want to talk to me about all that stuff because that's like one of my little quirks that I bring up every once in a while. That kind of doesn't make sense. It doesn't live in my feed. It's more like something I mention in my stories. I'll be like, it's Friday night, you know where to find me. And they're like, oh my gosh, watch this, watch that. So that's like quirk. And then like your attitude too. I at first remember when I first started coaching, I wanted to be like really like nice and calm and talk more slowly than I actually did. And it just didn't work. And so I just decided, hey, my attitude is a little bit in your face and a little bit I told you so. And once I gave myself permission to be those things, a little bit in your face, I thought that is my brand. Yeah. Then it was easier for me to show up. So if you have your buckets, you have maybe like one quirk that makes you like kind of funny, different. And then you have your brand attitude and you own it, whatever that is. Even if it's studious, great. Own studious. That's fine. Allow yourself to be that. Like the Clear Eyes guy, he got big off of being kind of dull, right? Like that's his brand and it worked for him. So just own whatever your attitude might be. I think once you have like that foundation, it's easier to create content.
Very much so. And I think you're going to attract an interesting dynamic of people, right? Like when I started getting into, I picked up my fly rod again, started fishing a whole bunch. I didn't really share a lot of it on my stories, but I did here and there, and started sharing that quirk about myself. It interestingly led to a potential developer opportunity. And guess what? The fly guide I hook up with, he does trips with like high-end agricultural people all over the world. And, it's very, very interesting to hear the relationships and what stems from being in the place where you're joyful and you're happy, and you're going to attract the right people and probably dequalify the wrong people at the same time.
Absolutely. I only ever get to work with agents who I adore because they called me because they already like me. So yes, am I missing out on some clients? Absolutely. Probably because I cuss, probably because I'm annoying, probably because whatever, all these things. They're like, I would never work with Candice. That's fine. The people who work with me are excited to work with me. They know I'm their flavor, right? Yeah. And that makes I don't ever have to go on sales calls anymore. People just are like, okay, Candice, just tell me how much it is, right? And that is because they feel like they already know me because I've created so much content. I'm absolutely myself in my content. And you can do that too. So if you're listening right now and you are like, okay, like this is like a mythical thing that doesn't happen for people, you're wrong. And the longer you say that, the longer it's going to take for you to see the results and what's on the other side of creating that content. Promise you, 3 to 6 months, if you're serious, you'll start seeing that traction. And here's another thing to note. If you're not yet, you don't yet have the lead or you haven't had a call with someone, here's how you know your content is still working. If you walk into a room and people are like, oh, so you're a TikToker now, huh?
Nice.
You know your content is working,
Well,
right?
I was watching some creators that aren't very big, right? Like people that I know in other cities that are close to us that I send business to. And their like full-time business is coming off TikTok and their followings are not massive. I don't think people understand the amount of impact that these digital platforms have.
In my first month of TikTok, I made 93 TikToks. I did a sprint because I was like, I'm gonna figure this out,
3 a
right?
day for 30 days. Yeah.
Yep. I made 93 in the month of January, and I got 3 new clients who were complete strangers, never met them in my whole life. And I ended the month with 1,600 followers. So
Hmm.
it's not like I had a ton of followers, right? I'm still a small creator.
Yep.
And I got 3 new clients, people I've never engaged with before, just from the app. So it absolutely works. And I know clients who have less than 1,000 followers who have gotten deals on from Instagram or from TikTok.
Yeah, it's real. I can't stress that enough to people. The follower count to me doesn't even matter. I actually put out a TikTok today about fake followers, and I said, here's 2 ways you can see if an IG account's got fake followers. Is one, look in the comments, and you'll see the same like 5 people posting 65 comments in it on every single one of their posts, and they're just gamifying the system, or they have 50,000 followers in one comment. And I think those accounts, short term, they may get a couple clients because they're like, look, this person's an influencer, but I would rather have 1,000 followers hyper engaged than 50,000 that were bots overseas.
Absolutely. Yep, absolutely. You always want to have authentic relationships. That matters. And so if people are, in your DMs telling you that they can get you, 10,000 followers, that's just no.
Yeah, we can get into the whole shenanigans online. That'll be another podcast for another day. I do have to get into the rapid fire questions and value your time and get you out of here. I see Jaime Resendez, who's an absolute monster at YouTube. Follow my boy. Jaime is a real estate agent, but he also like his thing is YouTube. So like when I think of him, he shows you how to set up ads, Facebook, how to grow on YouTube and all that stuff. I see Connell Jacinto Real Estate, great valuable information. Nice to meet you. First time I've seen you on the channel. Welcome. And I see none other than the Zillow killer, James. Remember it. I absolutely
What's up, fam?
I know. I need him to do the voiceover for my audiobook one day. I think that's the plan.
I actually got Jaime. I met Jaime in real life like 2 weeks ago in Vegas. It was awesome.
He's so sweet. He's such a nice guy. And then Megan Luker, exactly, Instagram story. So if you're here and you're watching the live stream, just drop your name in the comments. If you're not, drop it in after, and feel free to connect with Candice. We'll drop all her information. I see producer eScarf in the back. Please drop her IG in the comments and in the show notes as well. You ready to get into the rapid fire question so I can get you out of here?
Let's go.
Awesome sauce. So up to this point, what is the greatest lesson you've learned?
That my biggest superpower is being unapologetically myself, coming from a place of service.
I concur. Having watched you grow over the past probably 2 years now, it's been pretty awesome to see. What are you learning right now?
I'm learning how to leverage. So, I added people to my team, and I'm learning to let go. I don't have to control everything, and how leveraging is actually going to help me scale. So that's what I'm learning. And it's like it's an oddly emotional process too, to allow that to happen. So leverage, it matters. Make sure you're not doing everything yourself, that you're not going to grow that way. So
I'm aware. I just hired an air traffic controller, and I'm like, I shouldn't be the one managing all of the things. Like I need to be 30,000 foot view, dive in, clear the laneways, put out the fires. But yeah, we could talk for hours about that one. Yep. How has failure shaped your life?
I think that there is no failure, only lessons learned. And I feel like I learned that early on. And I think that has helped me to be less afraid, because I know every time something has failed, I've been able to get up and I now have new knowledge of what not to do or how to do something differently. So I think if you could see failure as kind of like a tool that helps you along the way, if you know that failure is just inevitably going to be part of every business, you're going to fail at something, some days. And as long as you're learning, I think that's okay. So I would say like embrace failure, ask yourself what you're learning, and let yourself fail sometimes. It's okay. Like it's the only way you move forward.
I love it. Jennifer Goodman's here. She said, unapologetically self.
I love
Yes.
Jen. Hi.
She's wonderful as well. The last, actually, wait, second to last question. What is one tactical piece of advice you can give the viewers today that when this show is over, they can do and tag you in? That's an action item for them to get out of their box and grow on social.
Get in your calendar and put 5 minutes a day to be in your Instagram story. And I'm only giving you 5 minutes because I know it's going to be like which button to push, whatever. You really only need 1 to 2 minutes in Instagram stories. But if you put it in your story, if you put it in your calendar every day and you show up, I promise you're going to have more conversations and feel a little bit less stressed about showing up on social media because you realize everyone's just human beings out here. So that's tactical and simple.
It is. And Connell actually said you fail only when you quit, which is true.
100%.
There is no such thing as failure. And actually to layer on to your piece of advice, if they're trying to be like, well, I don't know what to post. What are you doing? Where are you doing it? Who are you doing it with? Very simple. Take a picture. The most important question we could possibly ask you, given you made time for the show, my platform is yours. Feel free. Is there anything you want to share with our audience? Anything you're working on? You want to point them in a certain direction? My platform is yours.
Thanks. So if you need support with personal branding, I've got you. If you're the person that's asking, what am I supposed to post? I help you with that. So reach out to me. You can find me on Instagram or TikTok at Elevate with Candice. And don't be afraid to slide into my DMs. That's all I'll say there.
I appreciate that so much. I'll see you in the Performance crew and maybe in person one day when I come back to Sirhant. That
Can't
maybe
wait.
In the cards very, very soon. Thanks again,
Awesome.
Candice.
We'll see you. Thank you.
All right. See ya.